I noticed he never slept on my fourth night in the building. It was 2:43 a.m. In Cleveland, that dead hour when the city finally shuts up and your thoughts don't. I couldn't sleep, so I got up for water, wandered to the door and, for no reason I can really explain, leaned into the peephole. The hallway looked like every cheap hallway anywhere. Beige walls, gray carpet, humming LED by the elevator. But one thing was wrong. Across from me, apartment 5B, a thick strip of warm yellow light leaked out from under the door and onto the carpet. I'd seen it every night since I moved in, always on, like someone had forgotten how to turn their life off. As I watched, the light broke. Not the bulb, the shadows. Something paced just inside, cutting through the strip every few seconds. Back and forth, back and forth. Someone was walking in there, hard, at nearly 3 in the morning. Insomnia, I told myself. Big city. Not your problem, Jason. But when I lay back down, all I could see was that thin bar of light and the invisible feet wearing a groove in the floor. The next day, at lunch in the hospital IT office, I remembered the building's smart app. When I'd signed the lease, the manager, Mr. Patel, had shown it off like a toy door access, lobby camera, hallway camera. "You'll feel safe," he'd said. I just nodded, too tired and too recently divorced to care. That night, I downloaded it. Lying on my mattress, I opened 5th floor East Live. My phone showed the corridor from a ceiling camera. Elevator on the left, my door, 5A. His door, 5B. And that same strip of light under it. The image was grainy, slightly crooked, timestamp glowing in the corner. I watched for maybe a minute. The app pinged softly. Motion detected. A red square highlighted the strip of light. Inside it, a shadow moved. Pace, turn, pace. Over and over. I told myself it was nothing. Curious one-time thing. Turned into a nightly ritual. Every evening, I'd heat up dinner, sit on the floor, and scrub through the previous night's recording. The app marked movement as tiny red bars on the timeline. On my side of the hall, there were a handful of bars. Me arriving, me leaving, delivery guys, a neighbor with a dog. Normal. On his side, the bars almost formed a solid line. Hundreds of motion events per night. The counter at the bottom would happily tell me 360, 380, 410. He never left for work in the morning. He hardly ever opened his door at all. But all night, every night, he walked. My brain called it data. My gut called it wrong. I met him a week later. The elevator had died again. Out of service, handwritten in squeaky marker. So I was dragging 2 heavy grocery bags up the stairs. By the time I hit the 5th floor, my lungs were burning. As I turned into the hall, 5B's door opened. He stepped out and froze. I did too. He was weirdly normal. Mid-40s maybe, though there weren't many signs. Dark hair, neat, clean-shaven. Navy hoodie, jeans, worn sneakers. No visible tattoos, no piercings, no smell of anything. His eyes were the only thing that stuck with me. Gray-blue, very clear, very awake. "Hey," he said. No accent, no warmth either. "You must be new." "Yeah." I shifted the bags. "Jason, 5A. He nodded. "Caleb, 5B. We stared at each other for a second like 2 NPCs whose dialogue tree hadn't loaded yet. "You're across from me," I added, because my brain had apparently left the building. "I am aware," he said, not as a joke. His gaze flicked to my bags. "You eat microwave dinners, frozen pizza, and canned cold brew. You watch crime shows until 2 a.m. You talk to your mother on speakerphone." I blinked. "You can hear all that?" "The building is thin," he said. Then, after a beat, "And I listen." That second sentence hung in the air too long. "Sorry if I'm loud," I managed. "It's not unpleasant." The corner of his mouth twitched. "It's information." He moved past me toward the stairs. As he did, a whiff of something followed him. Not cologne, not sweat. Clean, sterile, faintly electric like hospital corridors and server rooms. His door stayed open a crack behind him. From where I stood, I could see only white light. No furniture, no mess, just light. That night, the strip under 5B burned bright again. The first real crack in reality came a few days later, around 3:15 a.m. Insomnia again. I opened the hallway feed out of habit. The corridor appeared on my screen. Empty, greenish in night mode. My door dark, his door glowing. The motion detector box appeared around the strip of light. His shadow paced back and forth. I watched, half asleep, something heavy in my chest, until the shadow did something it shouldn't be able to do. Piece of it peeled away. For one frame it was normal, legs, feet, a blur of movement. Then a long, thin smear of darkness slid sideways out of the light and crawled up the opposite wall. Too high, too far, like someone's arm but stretched out of proportion, bending in places an arm shouldn't. It glided along the wall and stopped right near my door, at peephole height. For a heartbeat, it stayed there, a patch of wrong darkness, while the main shadow kept pacing behind the door. Then it snapped back under 5B in a sharp, unnatural way, like a tape rewinding. I sat up in bed, heart hammering, cold all over. Cheap camera, I told myself. Algorithm garbage. LED flicker. Compression glitch. The tech part of me clung to that explanation like a life raft. I rewound 10 seconds, watched frame by frame. Same thing. Strip of light. Shadow pacing. The smear breaking off and sliding exactly where no shadow should ever go. Pausing at my door. Snapping back. I saved the clip. The next day, I made the mistake of showing it to my coworker Ryan. He watched once, squinted, then shrugged. Yeah, that camera's trash. Dude, it's like 240p in 2025. But look at the shadow. Glitch, he cut in. Exposure, motion detection, some AI denoise job puking itself. You know this stuff better than I do. Don't go full paranormal Reddit on me. My neighbor never sleeps, I said. Ever. His light is always on. The app logs hundreds of motion hits every night. Maybe he's on night shift. Maybe he's on stimulants. Maybe he's a day trader watching Tokyo markets. Or maybe, he lowered his voice, maybe you're a guy in a new city after a nasty divorce, and obsessing over a weird neighbor is easier than thinking about your actual life. He wasn't wrong. That didn't make the video less real. The night I saw his shadow in person, I stopped pretending it was just cameras. It was a Friday just past midnight. I'd gone down to grab a package, new shelves I was pretending I'd assemble. Coming back up, I turned into the hallway and almost walked straight into Caleb. He was standing dead center in the corridor between our doors, facing mine, staring at my peephole, completely still. For a second, I had the sick feeling you get when you realize someone has been listening at your door and you've caught them mid-crime. Hey, I said. He turned toward me, that same micro-delay, like a video buffer catching up. Jason, he said. You're late. For what? I shifted the box between my hands. You usually return at 11:17 p.m. On Fridays, he said. It is now 12:02. You track my schedule? You are loud in the stairwell. He considered, then added, it is hard not to notice. He glanced at the package. I was listening, he said. To what? Your shadow. He said it like it was the obvious answer. It moves differently when you are tired. Every hair on my arms stood up. That's a really weird sentence, man. It is. His brow creased slightly. Thank you. I will adjust. He walked toward his door. The overhead LED threw his shadow long on the wall. I watched, unable not to. First step, body and shadow moved together. Second, same. Third, his foot hit the carpet. His shadow's foot hung for a fraction of a second, then jerked to catch up. He turned his torso toward his door. The shadow stayed facing me, just long enough for my brain to register it, then flicked into place. He gripped the knob, looked back. For one beat, his shadow didn't turn at all. Good night, Jason. Yeah, I said, throat dry. Night. He went inside. The strip of light reappeared on the carpet. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I called my mom, which I hadn't done properly in weeks. After some small talk, I blurted, did Dad ever see things before he got, bad? Silence. Then the sound of her setting something down carefully. "Jason, your father was sick," she said. "I know. I mean, before that. You told me once he talked about shadows that didn't match people. About the TV watching him. About neighbors not being who they were." "I should never have told you that," she said quickly. "I was tired. You were a kid. Scared you. So it happened." "He had paranoia," she said. "Hallucinations. He thought the guy across the hall was FBI. He thought you'd been replaced once. That you weren't really you." Her voice thinned. "None of it was real, Jason. It was his illness. Why are you asking?" "No reason," I lied. "My neighbor's just weird. I'm probably overthinking it." "You're not seeing things, are you?" she pressed. "You're sleeping? Eating? I'm fine. If you start feeling like he did," she said, "you go talk to a doctor. Not the internet. Promise me." "Yeah, Mom. Promise." We hung up. I opened the app. Until then, I'd only watched footage from after I moved in. That morning, I dragged the history slider backward. 3 months. 6. A year. My side of the hall changed, different doormats, different tenants. A bearded guy on a skateboard. A young couple with a cat in a carrier. A middle-aged woman with a ficus. People came, people went. 5B stayed the same. The light under his door was on in every clip, no matter the hour. Shadows moved under it in January, in May, in the middle of a snowstorm, in a heat wave. It never went dark. In the oldest recording 18 months back, 5A was empty, no nameplate yet. The carpet looked cleaner, the walls less scuffed. At 9:02 a.m., 5B's door opened for the first time. Caleb stepped out, carrying a box labeled kitchen. Same navy hoodie, same jeans, same hair, same face. No subtle younger version signs. If I didn't see the date in the corner, I'd swear it was recorded last week. He set the box down, closed the door, picked it up, walked off. Months passed in the timeline. He appeared now and then, always alone, always at odd hours, always identical. Something in my chest sank. The missing time happened 2 Sundays later. I remember looking at the clock. 1:52 a.m. Telling myself, one more episode. While Netflix nagged, "Are you still watching?" I was sitting on the floor, back against my couch, empty mug next to me. Next thing I remember, my alarm was screaming in my ear. Sunlight from the blinds. I was lying on my bed fully dressed, shoes still on. My mouth tasted metallic. My neck and lower back ached like I'd been standing for hours. In the bathroom mirror, I saw a faint smear of dried blood under one nostril and a small, perfect circle on my inner wrist I didn't recognize, like a tiny burn. My phone had 3 push notifications. Motion detected, 5th floor east, 2:16 a.m. Motion detected, 5th floor east, 2:17 a.m. Motion detected, 5th floor east, 2:21 a.m. My stomach twisted. I opened the feed. Greenish hallway, timestamp 2 hours 16 minutes and 4 seconds. My door opened. I stepped out. It was me. Same hoodie, sweatpants, shoes, but the way I moved made my skin crawl. My arms hung limp. My head didn't bob. My feet lifted just enough, like I was being dragged along invisible rails. I walked straight to 5B. Knocked once. The door opened. Caleb stood in the doorway, haloed in white light. He looked like he'd been expecting me. We talked, but the camera had no audio. His face changed hardly at all. Then he reached out and took my elbow, gently but firmly, and pulled me inside. The door closed. The strip of light became a solid bar again. At 2:21, the door opened a crack. Caleb stepped out alone. The light stayed on behind him. He stood in the hall, facing the camera for a second, then turned toward my place. My chest went cold even before he moved. He walked up to my door and pressed his hand flat against it, palm splayed, like he was checking the temperature of the wood. He stayed like that for maybe 5 seconds. Then he dropped his hand, turned around, and went back into 5B. The light never flickered. I watched the whole thing 3 times, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. that metallic taste blooming again in my mouth. I had no memory of leaving my apartment, none of being inside his. When the knock came that afternoon, I already knew who it was. Jason. Caleb's voice, calm and close. "May I speak with you?" I opened with the chain on. His gray-blue eyes met mine the way they always did, too steady. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Tired," I said. "And if you say, that's normal after experiencing unauthorized firmware updates, I'm punching you in the face." He almost smiled. "I would not phrase it like that," he said. "May I come in?" Every instinct screamed no. I unhooked the chain anyway. He stepped inside, looked around like he was scanning a hotel room he'd booked for someone else. Boxes, couch, TV on a crate. Me, one frayed human. "You reached a threshold," he said, sitting on the far end of the couch, posture perfect. "We had to intervene." "Threshold of what?" I snapped. "Of observation," he said. "Your attention exceeded tolerance. You watched too much. The pattern started to shift." "What pattern?" "Yours," he said simply. "You are beginning to align." "With what?" I asked. My voice sounded distant. "With us." It should have sounded insane. Instead, a horrible part of me thought, of course. "What are you?" I asked. He considered, like he was choosing between several bad metaphors. "The closest word you have is observer," he said. "But we are not from another star in the sense you imagine. No ships, no invasion. We are a network, a layer running parallel to yours, slightly out of phase. Most of the time you do not see us. Like the code that runs on your machines, you only see the interface." "And you're the interface for this building," I said, feeling surreal. "Yes. And I'm what, exactly?" "You are a node," he said. "A process of interest." He watched my face, then added, "You died, Jason. On the freeway. 42 seconds. Your heart stopped. Your brain sustained damage." He said it casually, like reading from my chart. My stomach formed a tight, nauseous knot. "I remember the accident," I said. "They told me I was lucky." "You were backed up," he corrected. "We do not like losing promising patterns. Adjustments were made to keep you close to your original configuration. But you inherited your father's sensitivity. You notice edges. That makes you unstable." "Edges like your shadow lagging?" I asked. "And the camera anomalies. And the fact that my door is always lit. And that I have not changed in 18 months. He nodded. "These are discrepancies. Most of your kind ignore them. You did not." He leaned forward slightly. "Your father also noticed," he said. "He saw misaligned shadows, repeated frames. He lacked the framework to process this. He broke against it." "So he wasn't completely crazy," I whispered. "He was unshielded," Caleb said. "You are being managed." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Great. Good to know. What about that thing on the wall?" I pushed. "The shadow by my door." He hesitated. "That is you," he said. "That's becoming your favorite answer." "Not this you," he said. "Another iteration of your pattern. You are not singular. When we restore you after events, accident, divorce, relocation, we do not delete the other runs. They continue in parallel, slightly offset. Most of the time, they stay close. You feel them as what if, as regret, as déjà vu. Lately, yours have drifted. Because I moved. Because I left my wife. Because I died." I said. "Yes, your path diverged sharply. The other versions are trying to line up. Sometimes they leak. So that thing at my door is a different me?" I said slowly, trying to get back in. "A version that did not move," he said. "That stayed married. That did not die on the freeway. It is not malign. It is lost." My eyes stung before I even realized I was tearing up. "Perfect," I said hoarsely. "I'm haunted by better versions of myself." "You are layered," he corrected softly. "We maintain all of you because your species is the only one we know that asks why it exists, that feels guilt, that tells stories about itself. You are computationally expensive but valuable. Glad we're interesting, I muttered. What did you do to me in your apartment? I asked again. The part one can't remember. We stabilized the desync, he said. You were starting to drift. You asked questions that would tear your current node apart if you carried the answers back intact. The gap protects you. Let me guess, I said. You'll tell me when I'm ready. When your structure can sustain it, he said. Awareness is load. What happens if I tell someone all this? I asked. My mom, my coworker, a therapist. They will interpret it through their constraints, he said. Your mother will think you are following your father. Your coworker will think you are burned out. A therapist will label. Their reactions feed back into your pattern. It will hurt. You may withdraw. That is one outcome. Acceptable. And if I don't shut up? I pushed. Then alignment may accelerate, he said. You may see more nodes. Feel other versions more strongly. You might be recruited. Recruited. To become an interface, he said. Like me. Is that what you were? Once? I asked. Just some guy in 5B? A faint, almost human sadness passed through his eyes. Sometimes I have echoes, he said. I remember liking coffee, worrying about rent, listening to the people across the hall and wondering what their lives were like. Then the network hums and function takes priority. The echoes fade. That sounds lonely, I said. We live among you, he replied, standing. That is not the same as living with you. He walked to the door. I watched his shadow again because I couldn't help it. This time it stayed almost perfectly in sync. Almost. Just before he opened the door, the shadow turned its head toward me while his body stayed facing out. Then it snapped into place and followed him through. A moment later, the light under 5B appeared on the hallway floor again. Time after that got thinner. On the surface, everything was the same. I fixed printers, reset passwords, dealt with doctors who couldn't find the any key. Ryan complained about his girlfriend. My mom sent me inspirational quotes about new beginnings. Underneath, another layer hummed. On the bus, I noticed a woman whose reflection in the window blinked a half-second late. At the store, a cashier's smile arrived before the joke did. Shadows on walls seemed to pause when people didn't. Interfaces, observers, other Calebs, other me's. Some nights, I stared at my own reflection and felt like I was seeing a costume. Jason, 32, divorced IT support as a role in a play, and something backstage deciding whether to keep the character. I kept watching the hallway feed. I told myself I should stop. I didn't. One evening, scrolling through the timeline almost on autopilot, I noticed the date at the bottom. 2 weeks from now. I thought it was a bug until the feed loaded. Mr. Patel walked down my hallway, talking to a woman pulling a dark blue suitcase. Early 30s, messy bun, backpack on one shoulder. Tired, but bright-eyed. They stopped in front of my door. Only it wasn't quite my door anymore. No scuff marks. No worn mat. He handed her keys. They shook hands. He left. She stood alone a second, then mouthed something I couldn't hear. It looked a lot like, okay or new start. She opened 5A and went inside. The timestamp in the corner was clear. 15 days from now. In the future clip, my apartment was empty. No boxes. No couch. No TV on a crate. No me. Across the hall, the light under 5B glowed. Caleb's door opened. He stepped out unchanged, as if time meant nothing to him at all. He walked toward her door and, on the silent recording, I saw his lips shape the same words he'd said to me. Hey, you must be new. My thumb shook as I paused the video. Around me, in the present, my apartment was the same mess it had always been. Mug on the floor, laptop on the couch, router blinking in the corner. I was still here. But somewhere, in the system, in the network, in whatever passes for their time, the next node was already queued. Someone else was already moving in where I stood. Maybe I move out on my own. Maybe I break down and get help. Maybe I accept whatever recruitment looks like and leave this version behind. Maybe I don't get to choose. I don't know. I only know that when I walk down my hallway now and pass 5B, and that strip of light touches my shoes, I feel watched in a way that has nothing to do with cameras. And when I pass strangers on the street and their shadows don't quite match their step, I don't think monster anymore. I think node, interface, echo. I think maybe that's the version of someone who took a different turn. Sometimes, late at night, I turn off all the lights and stand in the center of my living room, moving my hands slowly, watching my own shadow on the wall. Most of the time, it follows. Sometimes, just for a heartbeat, I swear it doesn't. And in that tiny delay between me and the thing attached to me, between this life and all the others running alongside it, I feel them. The ones who never sleep. The ones who never age. The ones who live across the hall and inside the walls and between the frames, watching us stumble through our one version of the story, while a dozen other versions press against the glass, asking quietly, which one of us is really human?